And we believe more than anything that they deserve to maximize the value of their life work and live that amazing life of significance, taking care of the people they love, the causes they care about, and making a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where we feature top leaders on how they measure success in their business and life. Now, let's learn from their experiences.
Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where I talk with top leaders about effective strategies that inspire success. Today, I'm very excited to have our guest, Bob Bedritis. He's the CEO and founder of Oswego Private Wealth Management. He has degrees from Miami of Ohio University and also of Wharton School of Business. He has 20 years experience on Wall Street with Merrill Lynch and UBS. We're also excited to say that Bob is a part of our sponsors for the Measure Success podcast, as well as our $4 Million Strategies podcast. We did this not just for any reasons, because we've actually worked together in the past, and he does exactly what we need for our clients. Is he does what we love to do, is we want to make sure that a business owner can actually create financial independence. Without that freedom, do you really have anything, right? And sometimes we're so tied to our business, we don't create the right amount of wealth, and we don't have the freedom that we really want to have when we started our business in the first place. And Bob is the right type of person to help us get us in that direction. So Bob, welcome to the Measure Success podcast.
Thank you, Carl. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So Bob, let's talk about the kind of the fun stuff. Like, why in the heck did you get into this business? So you had this challenging but very lucrative side of being on Wall Street, right? And being in New York and having the different experience around that. And here you move all the way, and I loved it, we were talking earlier, to Oregon, right? Where we're both based in here, which is, of course, Oregon, for those who were cringing if you live here in the great state of Oregon. But Bob, tell us, why did you move out here, and what got you the idea to start your own private wealth management firm?
Oh, well, it's a little bit of a story, which I'm happy to tell, delighted to tell. So I grew up in an amazing, loving family. My mother and my father we're first generation. I'm first generation. They are immigrants. They came from Riga, Latvia. And when World War II broke out, my father, who was all of 16 years old, put a rifle over his shoulder and fought Soviet aggression throughout the war. He was wounded a couple of times, obviously, survived, or I wouldn't be here. And most of my family did not get out when the Soviets came in post-World War II. But my mother and father independently were able to get out of Riga. The Allies helped them and put them into a displaced persons camp in Munich, Germany. And that is where my parents met. That is where they married. My father was a pretty good athlete. He actually, during those years, played semi-pro basketball in Germany. And they had their papers for Australia. And they were ready to go when, at the 11th hour, the First Baptist Church of Cleveland, Ohio, sponsored them on a humanitarian mission to give this young couple a new life of freedom. I like that you use that word freedom in the intro, because that is a word that's near and dear to me. And so they began, and of course you can imagine my father, whose education ended at the age of 16, was qualified to do a laborer's job. So he worked in a warehouse for a big company in Cleveland, and he got his education at night. He worked diligently and worked his way up within the company. And, within a decade or so, he was a senior manager. And we moved from Cleveland to Columbus, Ohio. And my father ran the show there for almost 3 decades. So I'm off to college. I kind of trying to figure out, how am I going to make my way in the world? So I use sports as well. I was a capable tennis player, played a few other sports, hockey, basketball. But I was trying to figure out how to make my way through. So one day from Miami of Ohio, I come home from college on a break, and my father let me know that after almost 30 years of service, his company got bought out by a larger company, and they gave him his 2 weeks notice, and he was done. Well, my dad was only young 50s at the time. He wasn't done. And God bless him, he started his own entrepreneurial business, Buckeye Business Associates, Inc., and he was a business broker. He was specializing in the restaurant industry, and he built up that business, successful with that business. And I was able to get a kind of an armchair view to watch him do that and see the struggles he had to build up this business. Well, at the end of he ran that into his young 60s, and when he was done, he was done. He simply just shut it down and moved on, and they did fine. My parents were solidly middle class Americans. But I couldn't help thinking once I got into the financial services industry and my career that if he would have had more advice, better advice, had surrounded himself with wealth management, better attorneys, CPAs, that he could have monetized that sale. He wouldn't have to have just shut it down. There could have been life for Buckeye Business Associates post my father stepping away. So anyway, I just kind of fast forward that. So, and oh, by the way, my mother was an Avon lady. The minute her feet hit the shores of America, put her feet on American soil, my mother became an Avon lady. And the year before she died, there was a banquet to celebrate 60 years of one of the high producing Avon ladies in the country. So I go off to school. Right out of school, I knew I wanted to be in financial services. I went directly into that career, and I just sort of got lucky. I think I just kind of moved up the chairs. I was a broker. I was a branch manager. I was in the 90s. I was the West Coast divisional manager for UBS, and then I became national sales manager. Went to New York, and from there, my last promotion in that august firm was I was head of the wealth management group for UBS, and we had a very successful run. We had a large department. We were about 10% of UBS's North American run rate revenue. So we were doing really, really great. However, I had 4 young children at home, living in New Jersey, taking the train in or fighting the Lincoln Tunnel every day, inordinate amount of time on airplanes, Carl. And I just had to reflect on that. And I was exhausted. I was killing myself. But more importantly, I wasn't the father I wanted to be with 4 young kids. I certainly wasn't the husband I wanted to be, relatively absent. And I just said, I need to make a change. So, of course, I did nothing but get depressed about it. But out of the blue, I got a telephone call from a headhunter who said, we've got this terrific position in Portland, Oregon, and would you be interested in talking to us about it? And I knew from my time on the West Coast when I was in San Francisco that I had spent a lot of time in Portland, and boy, do I love this area, the people and the geography and all the even the weather. I don't mind the rain, better than the cold and humidity of Ohio. And so they made me an offer, and I jumped at it, not truly understanding it. And I came out to be a CEO of M Financial Group, the wealth management division. And lo and behold, after about a year, they decided that I wasn't the CEO they wanted, and so they fired me. Well, I'm a decade younger than my dad at the time, and it was quite a shock to my system, but it really wasn't a great fit, and I would agree with the board today that I wasn't the CEO that they really wanted or needed. And so I retired for about 3 years. I simply made up for a lot of lost time. I spent an inordinate amount of time with my kids. I coached everything. I got on the school board, devoted a lot of time to charitable endeavors. I was in the Oregon Symphony Board, Guide Dogs for the Blind, Choice Adoptions, a couple of others. And I was really a full-time retiree and a full-time person doing a lot of work for charities and nonprofits, which I love to this day. And when it was all said and done, after about 3 years, I said, I'm not done yet. I'm still too young. There's still too many things that I want to do. So I founded another firm. We called it Paradigm Capital Group, and we built up a consulting firm to hedge funds and private equity firms. And we built that up over those 13 years, and it grew substantially. And I was so happy about doing that work. But then again, I did what I had done before. I threw myself into another environment where I was on airplanes all the time because, tell you a secret, Carl, Portland isn't the financial center of America. So I was spending a lot of time in LA, San Francisco, Austin, Boston, New York, and I said, I just can't. I just need to recalibrate what I'm doing here. And so I thought hard about, again, not done yet, thought hard about what I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, I said, listen, my training is in wealth management. It's what I love to do. And so we founded Oswego Private Wealth Management about a decade ago. And we started that business as really a proof of concept. My paradigm for the business was really to serve the affluent investors, primarily in the Portland, Oregon area, although today we have clients in 37 different states. And we've really grown this into a national practice. And something really tragic and wonderful happened about 16 months into me starting this business. I play a lot of squash, as you know, and I had the misfortune of taking a squash racket into my right eye. And that created a series of surgeries for a detached retina that just would not reattach. So I ended up having 9 surgeries on my eye. And if anybody's listening to this or watching this has ever had a detached retina or knows somebody who did, one of the things that you have to do is lie face down 16 hours a day as you go through the process for about a couple of months, times 3 for me. And so I had this immature business. I was just starting to get my first clients because we started out without any clients or any assets under management. And at the same time, I just didn't know what was, I was on my face most of the day. While that's going on, I got diagnosed with cancer. Not a lot of fun to get that conversation with your doctor. And I went through a series of treatments for my cancer, including a surgery that developed a blood clot that went into my lung. So I had so I spent, I know tale of woe, but it ends up fine. And I tale of woe, and I ended up up on the hill at OHSU Christmas week one year, and in 2016. And I spent that week up there, and I had a doctor who was very blunt with me and told me I should really make sure my plans are in place, because he said, you have statistically about a 30% chance of not ever walking out of this hospital. Anyway, fast forward all that. Over 2 years, I had 21 surgeries, an inordinate amount of time not knowing if I was going to live, I was going to die, what's going to happen, do I really have a business as it's growing? And as you can imagine, Carl, I had a lot of time to reflect over that period of time. And as I reflected on it, I thought about what we were building and what we were doing, and who is it that I really believe God's put me on this earth to serve. And I came out of that with a conviction, and the strength of conviction that it is the entrepreneurial business owner, the most productive human beings on the planet, those who take a risk, build a business, fulfill a payroll, and contribute to society. And so I took the clients that I had that were not in that category, the entrepreneurial business owner, and I worked with another advisor to help transfer them over to somebody else who would take great care of them, somebody I trust, love, and I would trust with my own money to make sure that they were well taken care of. And we took it down to a core of entrepreneurial business owners, and that is who we serve. And that's what I'm so passionate about and so excited about, is that I get to work with those folks. And we created our business and structured it as a virtual family office. I can talk about that in just a little bit. But we're also a family business. We have my son, Eric, has been with me for a number of years now. And Eric is a certified exit planner, as I am a certified exit planner. He has the same passion and commitment to work with business owners. My daughter, Kim, is in the business with us. My son, David, is in the business with us. So we're truly a family business. And we serve a lot of family businesses, but a lot of just closely held privately businesses. And that's what we do. And I know it's a very long-winded way to answer a pretty simple question. But I can't help it. I just get so excited about being able to serve the same people you serve, Carl, is that entrepreneurial business owner. And what we want to do with these affluent families is we really want to help them live an amazing life of significance, help them take care of the people they love, the causes they care about, and make a difference in the world. And there is life post selling your business, or even if you're still in the business, there are things that we help our clients do that get them to the place of most potential and help them make smart decisions about money.
It's funny. We've had a lot of conversations, and I don't think I had the full depth of everything that you had shared. Yeah, even I think you glossed over it a little bit, and that's a lot of surgeries that you had in your life. Um, I'm curious, for somebody who is a very high achiever, which you are, how did you handle those times when you were laid up? You're like you mentioned. I mean, there's more than one surgery, right? You had sounds like you've had 30 or 40 surgeries if you combine them all together. Perhaps I'm wrong in that number, but I mean, it's a lot. Um, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with this? Going 100 miles an hour and you are forced, right? You are stopped.
Well, well, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before, but I will tell you how I. By the way, I've also, as a struggling aging athlete, I've also had three rotator cuff surgeries and a couple of knee surgeries thrown in there as well, and I'm still standing. And oh, by the way, I am cancer free. I'm not. It's not remission. I am absolutely cancer free, and I've never been healthy. I feel great. But I would answer that question two ways. Number one, my faith, God's sovereignty. I believe that God is in control of every little thing, good, bad, or indifferent, that happens in my life, and so I clung through prayer and study of the Bible. I just hung to God's sovereignty, and I will tell you, Carl, I never got depressed. I never felt woe is me. I just felt that God is in charge, and whatever happens, happens. And I've had a wonderful life. I've had a wonderful career. I have a wonderful family, and of course, I had a tremendous amount of family support, and friendships. I love relationships. One of the things that's a bedrock conviction for me as a business owner is what Dan Sullivan, with Strategic Coach, calls the four freedoms. And the four freedoms of the business owner is: number one, you have your freedom of time. I can determine my schedule. I don't have anybody calling me into a meeting, into a boardroom to talk about things that I'm disinterested in. I don't have to do TPS reports. I can control my time. The second thing is a great advantage for entrepreneurs is money. If you're a successful entrepreneur, business owner, certainly it is a profitable endeavor for most of us. And then we know that most startup businesses don't make it, but those who make it can actually make it in a significant way. The third, and this is where I want to drive to, the third freedom of an entrepreneurial business owner is relationships. We have an ability to choose who we want to work with, people who are a positive in our lives, right? So, and then the last one of all, which is the freedom of purpose. I'm not doing something for a big corporation of a big bureaucracy. I'm not just, working on the assembly line. I'm not just doing something with widgets. I am doing something that I'm passionate about and helping people. So there's four freedoms: time, money, relationships, and purpose. And I clung, and I never lost sight of that. But more importantly, I never lost sight of God's graciousness and his sovereignty in my life.
Well, amen. And I'm grateful for you that you were able to find peace through that. You and I both work with a lot of business owners, and we all run into events, life events, right? I'd say from my perspective, you ran into a few more life events than the average bear, so to speak, going through that. But I was curious about that because, sometimes these events break us, right? Or it breaks our business, or I mean, I can't imagine that must have been some financial strain, right? When you're in the early stages and you can't operate, right? You can't produce when you're in those early stages. And but what is important though, what's interesting is you obviously built some sort of foundation, and this is the part that you and I both we try to work with business owners is trying to create a business where not only are we maximizing the wealth exit opportunity, but even better is we can create an oil well for them, and they don't necessarily have to exit it, right? They can actually enjoy a life of prosperity and be more like a shareholder, right? And continue to take the dividends off of that oil well. I mean, that's where I think a lot of people miss is they get this exit, and you and I both know this. They get this, like, it's not always bad, but let's say they get a 3x exit. well, gosh, if we can make that a 4x or 5x or 7x or a 10x exit instead, because we have de-risked the business. But what's really interesting, when you de-risk the business so much, a lot of the reasons, like you talked about with your father, they end up selling is because they're done, right? They're like just exhausted. And so they sometimes just close the business down often, right? Or they sell it for pennies on the dollar, not even close to a 3x. It's luckily if they get 1x, of what they have. So I'm curious for you, as you were going through those challenges in the early days of this new current business that you have, what did you have in place to help make sure that things were still moving forward, even though you weren't personally available to do it?
Well, I had a team. When I came out, I invested heavily, and I had a team, and so I had a great surrounding group of people I trusted around me that understood the business, had experience of the business, and could help do it. But I mean, to your point, the day we opened the doors, we had I had 6 figures plus of expenses and no clients and no income. So it was really an act of faith. We didn't build this with any kind of cash flow on the positive side. Matter of fact, the cash flow was zero the day we started this, right, and just began it. But I had a vision. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to do it, and it didn't take long. It didn't take super long before we were cash flow positive and got things going, and then we grew from there. Even through the time when I was hobbled, which just to this day amazes me that things were okay, even when they weren't okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's remarkable. I love the story once again of endurance and overcoming all these challenges, and at the same time, building businesses. But what's fun is you get that experience once again to help out other business owners. Yeah, I think the numbers were approximately, Bob, you probably have the latest numbers, but roughly 90% of a business owner's wealth is tied up in their business, and so when we don't turn that into something, our retirement, our whole future is at strain, right? If we don't end up releasing that ability, perhaps as we get ready to close this podcast, perhaps you could give just one example of what is the most eye-opening thing that you typically run into with an entrepreneur, and they feel stuck with their business. Yeah, they have built something, but they feel stuck and they're concerned about their retirement. What is the one thing that you typically or help them see which gives them hope that there's a better way?
I want to answer that very directly, but let me get through the process that kind of helps work in this. So we've done a lot of work and funded some studies to what is it that that business owner really is concerned about, and we came up with 5 things. And number one is we want to make sure that we make smart decisions about money. Think about this, Carl. If I were to ask you or anybody, think about the 3 worst business decisions or financial decisions you've made in your life. And if I could unwind those for you, where would you be? And I always want to let that sink in because all of us can think about, oh boy, I got more than 3, but the top 3 ones, yeah, where would I be financially? But where would I have been in terms of stress, conflict in relationships, anxiety, sleepless nights? So number one, we help people make smart decisions about the big picture. Number two, they want to mitigate taxes because, again, as regulation taxation is a big thing for business owners, and we want to help mitigate those taxes. Again, we want to pay our fair share, but there are tools and techniques to pay your fair share, but not have it be as high as what you're paying now. And as somebody once said to me, it's good to pay your taxes, but don't leave a tip. Number three, we want to take care of the family. We want to take care of the heirs. Not everybody is concerned about their family, but most are, and most want to make sure that their children, their grandchildren, their great grandchildren, that the family's taken care of. Number four is to protect those assets against unnecessary litigation, and we want to make sure they're in a place where they're protecting those assets. And last but not least is, to the extent that our clients are charitably minded, we want to maximize those charitable gifts. And there are ways to do that other than them writing a check every year to somebody. And so those things, smart decisions about money, mitigating taxes, taking care of the heirs, protecting the assets, and maximizing the charitable gifts, that's the core and foundation of what we do. And what, again, as you had mentioned at the beginning of the show, what we're known for is helping business owners become financially independent of their businesses. And we believe more than anything that they deserve to maximize the value of their life work and live that amazing life of significance, taking care of the people they love, the causes they care about, and making a difference in the world. But what we often work with, and this gets a little more to the heart of your question, we often work with a successful, affluent business owners. From outside, they just look, they can't have any problems, can they? Because they're just hitting home runs every time they get up to the bat. Their life is charmed. But what we learn and we know is that there's something that's nagging them, it's gnawing at them. They're just saying, what if I become Bob Bedritis and get whacked in the eye and get diagnosed with cancer? What happens if I get hit by a bus? Is my family taken care of? What would happen to my business? Would I even have a business? Do I have people that can take it over? Would my wife and my family be fairly compensated for that? The list goes on those questions on what those things are that can happen. And I think the true value of our work is that it's really putting somebody in a place where they know that they know that they know they're making good decisions and they're taking care of those aspects. So when we engage with a client, the first thing we do is we just want to get to know them. We're big on the human element of the business. Everybody's different. A lot of businesses can look the same, but not really. And every human is different. And we really want to understand what their goals, their aspirations, their values are, what their interests are, what would they do? Because you and I have both seen so many business owners that they're done. Now what do I do? I can only play so much golf. I can only walk my dog so many hours a day. And travel, some people love it. Some people travel extensively for the first year and say, if I never get on another cruise ship and an airplane, it'll be too early for me. So that's what I see. And I think one of the most critical points that you made is, even as a certified exit planner, selling isn't always the goal. Matter of fact, sometimes it's not the goal, because helping them, and this is where your work is so amazing, Carl, is be able to grow that business and get the multiple they wanted, but now they're getting a multiple on a business that they've doubled, tripled, even 10x'd, and we can help them get there. But I firmly believe that every business should be succession ready, even if that owner's thinking, well, I'm not selling. 5 years, 10 years, 12th of never, but they still should be succession ready. And that's where we like to engage. That's really where we want to come in, even if they're not ready to sell the business. They have no plan on selling the business. We really want to make sure that those smart decisions are put into place and that they're capable of in that unforeseen situation.
Bob, this has been a great podcast. I appreciate all the insights that you provided today. I think you have shown multiple times how business owners should be able to measure success and through this process. And that's such an important part of this whole discussion, right? Is looking at those key concepts that we mentioned of how do we help create that freedom to do the things that we want to do and do it properly through our business. And Bob is that's once again why we are so excited that he's a sponsor of our podcast, is because he does these things. Bob, how can people connect and learn more about what you're doing?
Well, thank you for asking that. I mean, we have a website. It is whether you use OswegoPrivateWealth.com, or if you don't want to type as much, just OPWM.com. Can get us to the website, can get you to our website. You can check out our podcast. And Carl, you were a wonderful guest on my podcast, Lessons by the Lake. And they can go on there and they can schedule a telephone interview or a Zoom meet. I don't want to say interview, meeting, just to talk to me a little bit. And we, love to get to know people. What we want to do for people is my intention always is to serve them and to add value to their lives, whether we end up working together or not. So in that first interaction, I want to see if I can help somebody and take them through what we call the blueprint process, or it's a stress test, so to speak. And so I want to look at those 5 areas that I enumerated a little bit earlier. And I want to see, how are you doing in these areas? And invariably, we always find gaps, right? The circle's never round. It's always crooked. It's a bicycle that would never make it 2 inches, because you might be killing it in a family area, but hurting in a legal area or tax area or so on and so forth. And we want to go through that process with people. And I do that, and I'll do that without charge. To get to know people. The majority of our clients do come to us referred from other advisors, attorneys, CPAs. Yourself, you've been very gracious introducing us to some really wonderful people, and we'll take them through that process. And I will give them $5,000 to $10,000 of my consulting time gratis in order to discover whether we should be working together or not. And then out of that process, number one, I'll either say you're in great shape, you have great advisors, you don't need me, I'm not a good fit for you. I'll tell them that you do have significant gaps in your planning, but for one reason or another, I'm still not a great fit for you. There's still others that I think could serve you better, and then I can refer them to another set of advisors that we work with that again I would trust with my own money. Or number three, I just say, I will tell you very sincerely, I said, I think we should work together. I think I can add great value. I think this would be a very good relationship. And then I'll suggest that. But to get me through my website, to give us a call, set up a meeting, and talk about the possibilities, a possibility meeting, right? The possibility meeting is fantastic. And then from there, we decide what direction should we take.
Perfect. Bob, thank you so much for your insights, providing the connections, and once again, being guests on the Measure Success podcast.
Thank you, Carl.
Absolutely. To everyone else who's listening, I hope you've been inspired by Bob's message, by his testimonies, and most importantly, how he helps out business owners today. I encourage you to reach out to the website. All that information will be in the contact notes as well. I encourage you to subscribe to whatever platform you listen to on a consistent basis. And with that, as we always like to say, wishing you the very best and measuring your success. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Measure Success podcast. We'll see you again next time to learn from the best. Remember to subscribe now to get future episodes.